All right. Well, I think we can get kick started here. As Constable Gay from the Canadian Cybersecurity Network, I'm super happy to introduce the BSI panel today that's going to be talking about ISO 2001, 2701. I'm going to pass it over to Jim, who's going to introduce the panel, we're going to kick it off from there. Jim, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Francois. Aaron, you were the sort of instigator, I guess, and project manager, I hope I could say it that way, with your group. Would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Certainly, and thank you for that, Jim. My name is Aaron Lam, Manager of Information Security, Infrastructure, and Applications over at Lakeridge Health. If you're not familiar with Lakeridge Health, we're a healthcare organization in the Durham region, and I would probably say over the past 2 to 3 years, we've really been focused on our cybersecurity posture, implementing ISO as well, and specifically the 27001, which is the cybersecurity, and it's 27701, which is the privacy extension to that as well. Jim, I'll pass it back to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Aaron. Must have been quite a project, a long and winding road, probably to say the least. And Mark, you were on that road with Aaron. Can you tell us a little bit about, first of all, your work with BSI, and then how you got along with Aaron? He seems to be a nice enough guy.
He seems like a very nice guy. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I'm one of the lead auditors within BSI, and I had the pleasure to be one of the lead auditors in the team for the audit with Lakeridge Health. So for two standards, and we kind of bonded over a 20-day audit. So I think we had some time to share some stories and had some coffee and tea moments for sure.
Excellent. Thanks. Well, we'll find out a little bit more about that as we go through our webinar today. I've been working with BSI since 2020, and we've been doing these webinars actually for 10 years. This is our 10-year anniversary this year. I've been auditor, I teach auditors, and do a lot of implementation as well. And that's about it from me. So, would you like to get us started, Aaron, and tell us a little bit about why protecting patient data is so critical in your world?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that, Jim. I think when it comes to healthcare and patient information in general, it's generally I would consider a very high value information, similar to like your banking information, people's personal lives and their personal health is very important to them. I think the key thing in healthcare that some may know, there's a lot of legacy systems, and with modern technologies and legacy systems, usually there's a lot of vulnerabilities as hackers and other threat actors develop their attack strategies. I think being in healthcare, there's a very regulated expectation, but
Mhm.
often the funding isn't quite there in comparison to a typical private sector value. So we really have to, as the saying goes, do more with less. And I think in healthcare, that's very key to that as well.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. And for people who are visitors who aren't familiar with ISO standards, how would you explain the difference between 27001 and 27701?
I certainly would love to take that question, but personally for me, I'm about 3 years like learning about the ISO 27001 and 27771, but maybe I'll pass that over to Mark because I know he's have years and a wealth of experience with both
Oh
standards as
dear.
well.
Well, I would say thank you both. So the main difference between the two standards is that one is focusing on more the information security side of things, where the privacy or the ISO 27701 is heavily focusing on data and data sets. So as Aaron just went through, he has to identify what kind of sets he has, what kind of data they contain, as confidential. So it's more focused on the exact item for privacy,
Mm-hmm.
where the ISO 27001 is IT related, information security related, even cybersecurity related. So they have different perceptions, but they really supplement each other.
It's nice that the 27001 standard has that Annex A at the end to take care of a lot of the technical side, and I'm sure many of those things overlapped with 27701 just because of the nature, as you said, the IT nature of things. So back to you, Aaron. what did Lakeridge Health, or what led Lakeridge Health to pursue both of those standards at the same time? That's quite a large elephant to eat.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great question, Jim. I think for Lake Ridge, the key important part is at the time we really began this journey about 2022 timeframe, and cybersecurity was still new to the healthcare environment. I think for some of our listeners out there, cybersecurity may have been here for much longer than that, but in really the healthcare industry, it didn't really take off until 2021 or 2022 timeframe. I think the key thing for us is we really wanted external validation. We have some regulatory bodies. If you're familiar with the healthcare environment, we have something called Ontario Health, and they've created a legislation or a group of hospitals called a local delivery group. In fact, it's just a bunch of hospitals coming together to work on cybersecurity postures together. There's about 9 critical controls, but really on top of that, what can we do as an organization to further enhance those cybersecurity posture? I think we can kind of know, Jim, that the cybersecurity threats are continuously growing, and the patient really expects us to make sure that their patient information is secure. So it's really what it really came down to is making sure there was external validation and saying that when it comes to any regulatory audits, we're saying we're doing our best. This is what we've done. This is what we've done so far, and this is how we're going above and beyond compared to other healthcare organizations out there as well.
So those regulatory audits you just mentioned, were some of the requirements that the regulatory bodies have, were they similar to or the same as either the 27001 requirement or the 27701 requirement, or were they completely different?
There's definitely a lot of overlap. So I think when we really look into it, the main audits that the organization have is really the LDG audits as well as the financial audits. I think as some of our fellow managers know, when we go through typical financial audits, they do audit some information security, and some domains do fall under the ISO 27001 and 27701. I think the other thing to consider is that it also expands upon that. So we're not really looking to do just the bare minimum, but also looking to go above and beyond kind of you typically see in traditional audits and saying to like really to the community, this is what we're doing, and this is our approach to that at Lakeridge Health as well.
Would you say at the end of the journey that you had developed what you'd call an information sensitive or information security sense of culture in the organization, or where is the whole population at when it comes to information security?
Yeah. I think that's always a great question, Jim, and I would never say for certain that 100% of the organization. I think getting 100% of anything is very rare, but I would say that it's always a continuous target. Every day we're continuously improving. I think kind of reflecting back, and maybe Mark can speak a little bit more about this in the specific standard, but there's a big component on continuous improvement. It's not the fact that we have achieved this so far, but it's also about where are we today and how can we continue to improve. So it's not always about having 100% compliance, but also we're at this level, what do we do next to further improve and enhance? Because at the end of the day, the threat actors are always evolving, and we need to as well.
Yeah, and that was another thing we were going to talk about, was even though you are certified to the two standards, things never sleep when it comes to cybersecurity threats. So how do these standards help with you deal with the evolving? There's somebody in Wisconsin in their basement trying to hack into your system. How do these standards help you sort of stay up with what's going on?
For sure. And I would say that they really provide us a structured and proactive approach. There's a number of standards that I actually love. One really being risk assessment, but maybe I'll pass it to Mark just to maybe like some of the high level structure of how an ISO 27000 and 27701 will kind of look like.
From a standard point of view, when it comes to risks and vulnerabilities, it really pushes you to a standardized approach to identify weaknesses in your own system, internal, external. So although no one is really safe at any point in time because there's so many new things coming out and 0 days, I mean, you can never be fully protected. But the standards are really pushing your organization to understand where weaknesses are And if you can identify them, you can actually work on fixing and mitigating them. So it pushes a process in place there. You can actually start improving your own organization, your own network, and find your gaps, and then take it from there. But to say that you're always fully 100% safe, that's a bit of a big statement. And I probably will never tell a client that they're always fully in control. But yeah, there's always the unknown. You always have the unknown.
Well, it's great that all these high harmonized standards or high level structure standards have the 6.1 clause on risk identification, and then 27,001 and I'm sure 27,701, they all also have the additional requirements both in the organizational part, the people part, the technical part, and so on, to make sure that you're always looking and testing, keeping your ear to the ground when it comes to the whole system. And I guess the other thing too is, as you said, Mark, just being aware that you're not ever 100% safe. I guess you could say that cyber threats are like rust. It just never sleeps. It's always there.
And they evolve and they get better and smarter. But so are the clients. Right? They improve their own abilities as well. Oh, Jim, by the way, I think Jessica has her poll ready for you.
Oh, okay. Take it away, Jessica. We'll take a little break here, find out who's joining us or who's here with us today. If you could just click on any instructions on that, Jessica. Just, looks like people are figuring it out. Yeah, this is great. Executives, CIO, security. No CIOs here today. That's okay. Give you another minute. Looks like they've stopped. All right. Would you like to share the results, Jessica? Is there, I guess that's it. 3% IT management or executive. No CIOs here today. IT security consultant. Great to see some of the people from the trenches out here. Security body member. Interesting. Couple of those, few of those. And finally, other. Did we get any names typed into, or any titles, I should say, typed into the chat box? Maybe I can see. I don't think I can see them here. Okay, let's see, chat. Is that the chat there? Nope. Oh, wait a minute. Got some chats here. Nope, nothing in there. Okay, thanks, Jessica. And let's get let me get rid of this guy. Pop that over there.
And I think one thing, Jim, just circling back to our conversation before about are we 100% secure? I'm actually often asked, just as a small little story or analogy, I'm often asked, oh, now that you're ISO certified, does that mean you're unhackable or you guys are fully secure? And I think my common response is I don't think I've ever said that. I think that by being ISO certified, it's just really showing that we're doing as much as we can. We're going above and beyond the typical norm, as one would per se in healthcare, and saying that this is what we've done, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're protecting your information. In the event that we are hit, we do have a plan in place. These are the things that we're looking for, and it really just really reassures our community that this is what we're doing to support them. And at the end of the day, I can probably sleep better knowing that I've done my best to kind of secure their information in the event something does happen.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great thing to bring up as well. And if any of our audience saw the movie Catch Me If You Can, it was based on a real life. His name was Frank Bignell, I think Junior maybe. And he, after he got out of jail, he went on the road as a platform speaker on security. And he said it's not a matter of if you're going to get hacked, it's a matter of when. And you mentioned this recovery plan, and at least that would get you back up and running more quickly if you have a robust recovery plan. And that is specifically, it has to be solid, tested and tested and tested whenever you can, just like you test for fire alarms. Same idea. Check your security plan, your security response. The other thing he said was that it's not going to probably come from outside. It's going to come from inside, from somebody clicking on a phishing email. And BSI themselves, and anybody can get these programs. BSI has a program where if somebody clicks on a phishing email, they have to take the training course about phishing emails over again. Mark's shaking his head. Maybe he's done it a couple of times, maybe not. So anything you can do like that to keep people aware, remind them that there are threats out there constantly. Speaking of that, what sorts of challenges did you face? I mean, I can even, I do implementations myself, and I can't even imagine how you sort of got your arms around the challenges. Was there anything you'd like to share with the audience about that part of the journey?
For sure. And honestly, I've asked this question to like in other similar webinars as well, like what is the biggest challenge? What are the challenges faces? And I'm going to give an atypical answer here. A lot of people say, oh, it's the leadership buy-in kind of being the hardest and really that proponent. But I would actually argue that we have a very strong leadership team at Lakeridge. It's very, I would like to pride myself in saying that the leadership, especially the senior leadership team at Lakeridge Health, is very modern, and they really fully supported this initiative because they really do understand the threats that cybersecurity can face as an organization, and I think that's the culture that we're trying to build. I think for us, we're an organization about 7,000. So for us, maybe the biggest difficulty would be that change management piece. It's very difficult, and as some of you guys running a little bit larger organizations may know, getting 7,000 people on board to do anything, it's a tough part in the first place. So I'd say that around the focus of educating staff, making sure why is this important to them and what we're doing. I think that was kind of the key part with pushing across 7,000 employees. But at the end of the day, it's something I would say that we're pretty successful on. If I go around and ask everybody, everyone's aware of the cybersecurity program. They are aware of like the things they need to do and what to do in situations, but really just getting that push to get everybody fully aware. And the importance of cybersecurity was, I would say, one of the biggest challenges that a lot of us face, and it's not just as part of ISO. I think cybersecurity in general, it's always tough getting everybody on board as well.
I remember saying a few times in my life, pretty much everybody likes variety. Variety is the spice of life, as the saying goes. But change, not so much. People, just generally seem to resist change right off the bat. And getting people to change, getting them to change their minds, like you just said, making them aware that there really is truly a threat in cyberspace, and we have some tools here to help us deal with it. That can definitely make things, at least start the ball rolling in the right direction, and then figuring out aligning the technical controls. I know everybody's used to doing their daily work a certain way, and they feel they're safe. There's no issues there, but getting those 27 or 93 controls from NXA in 27001 in place must have been quite a challenge to start with, although I'm sure most of it was, or some of it was in place anyway. But getting everybody on board, getting everybody talking the same language. It's like health and safety, same idea that everybody thinks they're operating in a safe way, but there's always something else we can do. If a healthcare organization is starting the ISO journey today, maybe some people will leave this and say, holy smokes, we better get on this. We better get on this train. What are the first few steps that you'd recommend that they take?
Yeah, certainly. And I'm also going to pivot this question to, I can see in the Q&A, there was a question about how can smaller health providers who
I
lack
was
the
just going to say that, yeah.
begin their journey. I think it's a perfect tie-in. But I
Hmm.
think just generally really answering that question, it's at the end of the day, it's not really about getting certified. I know
Yeah.
it's really like that is a component, and that's I would say that's very important to make sure what you're doing is correct. But I think a key thing is saying that these standards are actually available externally. I think getting certified is key to like finishing that whole circle. But if we're looking at this at a cybersecurity holistic point of view, really just understanding the standard, taking the recommendations and things to consider is quite important for a small organization. And you can, I would even say that start to slowly build that up over the time, just implement one control here, one control there, and maybe eventually you'll get to the point where, oh, I've got 80 to 90% of the controls. I can just add the certification to make it formalized. But I think the key thing at the end of the day, and I'm always a big proponent of this, it's not about being certified. It's really about the journey it gets there. So it's like not the outcome, but really the journey that you take in order to get to that side to that to get to the end destination. And maybe just looping it back for Lakeridge Health a little bit, really for us, really building a strong risk register. That's one key. Understanding risks and developing that was really key. And I would say even like developing the roles and responsibilities. As an organization very large, you need to say this is what your responsibility is and this is what your role is. But maybe I'll pass it over to Mark to kind of give us a high level feedback. I don't think there's many healthcare organization that does ISO, but would love to get your thoughts on that
Yeah,
as
there
well.
are a handful, and I think most probably just start off with 2001. So what you guys did was definitely probably a leap of faith and trusting the process. I think you already touched on some very important items. How get your registers, your risk register in place, but also the buy-in from not your senior management, but also the people on the floors in this case, because you guys went all in with everyone.
Hmm.
Had to go back to the question if you like resources, maybe have like a little interaction here. And you went all in with all sides in one go.
Yes.
Would you, hey, knowing what you know now, would you have started smaller, maybe one site or one department? What was the reason for going all in?
Honestly, we thought about that and that was a consideration, but I think as an organization, we really always consider that you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So
Hmm.
really the approach that we take is if we're only going to do it for a subsample group, what happens if we have an issue with the other subsample? I think we kind of want to pride ourselves at the end of the day, there's a kind of an equality across the organization. And for us, it's it's not if you're impacted in the emergency department or if you're impacted in, for example, mental health, right? So it's at the end of the day, it's still the same healthcare system. If for us, it made sense that the controls that we deploy should be well known and across the board, not just isolated to one or two departments or maybe just
Mhm.
IT itself. So I think the biggest thing we pride ourselves on is really your cybersecurity is only as strong as your weakest link.
Hmm. One thing I always recommend to people as well is to get familiar with the standard first. Uh, Make sure you understand it. And BSI has their introduction courses. They have executive overview courses as well for pretty much all the standards. And in this particular case, 27001 has a companion document, 27002, and it's specifically for Annex A for any listeners who are not familiar with it yet. And it has almost a page and a half of explanation for each one of those 93 controls we've been talking about in the back end. And I think that's a really good way to start. It certainly helps upper management understand what you and your team were heading into. And there's nothing worse than having top management think, oh, this will probably only take a couple of months and X number of hours and X number of dollars. I see Mark chuckling over there. It's incredible what's involved, and especially changing people's minds, just making that change. Winston Churchill said, I like to learn, but I don't like to be taught. And probably a lot of employees at Lakeridge are sort of that way. They know what they're doing. They're proud of what they do. They're proud of working for Lakeridge. And then sometimes how the person who's leading something like this has to be pretty skilled in not coercing, but just making people aware of the benefits. Also, making them aware of what is going to stay the same. the biggest fear people have when the word change comes out is they're going to have to do something differently. But I imagine in most cases, people kept doing their work the same way they had been doing it since they got hired. And speaking of leadership, we both talked about it a little bit earlier. How critical would you say leadership support? You mentioned it yourself. You had lots of support on that side. Would you say you've explained well that you had 100%? Is there anything about? Could you imagine an organization with weak leadership or not bought in leadership? Maybe Mark has seen some cases like that before where they've tried to implement this standard or any other standard really, and they haven't had the support that you need from leadership. Any thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, definitely, Jim. I would say senior leadership buy-in is not just important for the process, but it's important for the life cycle of the full management system.
Mm-hmm.
We have dozens of examples where have companies start out really enthusiastic. They have lots of resources available during the implementation phase. They go to their initial audits, and then they're all certified. Everyone is really happy, and then over time you see that kind of flowing away.
Mm.
Senior leadership kind of pushes it to the day-to-day operation. They become more standoffish, or maybe there's a change in leadership, and you see processes faltering down.
Mm-hmm.
So we are obviously to check every once a year, and we always hope that companies maintain and improve where needed. But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we come across examples where leadership is changed, or they have fully new leadership, they have a company change or a downsizing, and that never well, it doesn't boast well. It's always something to improve on that side. So yeah, but luckily, and I'll take some of the grass away from Aaron. The senior leadership at Lakeridge Health was definitely involved. We've seen that multiple occasions, but maybe Aaron wants to add to that. How did you get him on board, by the way, Aaron? What was your trick?
Well, I have the magic mouth. Maybe that's what I like to joke, but I
Yeah.
would say that we've also had like just a number of like leadership as well, and I think everybody was on board. But I think the key thing that I really want to identify is maybe I can give an example of why leadership is important, right? So
Mm.
with an organization of 7,000, you can imagine we probably have, I don't know the exact number, but at least like two to 300 types of managers, and of course a number of staff. I think the key thing for management support really is really enforcing the importance of cybersecurity training. When you have that amount of staff and that many amount of managers, if everybody's not fully involved, you may have one department here or one department there that doesn't really believe. I would maybe use that term, but believe in cybersecurity. You get like lack of cybersecurity awareness training completed. You see like them not following the policies and procedures, and at the end of the day, a lot of these needs to be enforced by their respective managers. I think it's very challenging for one department to manage, I would say 7,000, but it becomes a lot easier when you have each department's manager looking after their own staff in terms of that cybersecurity approach. And I would say it's essential. Like without leadership support, it'll be an uphill battle at all times in order to implement any successful cybersecurity system, or I would even say education program in that organization as well.
And I've often said leaders lead by example, whether they want to or not. So anybody walking by the president's office, you want to see a clean. If they're gone, you want to see a clean desk and a clean screen, that kind of thing. You can't say one thing and do another and expect people to listen to. What's his name? Ken Blanchard said it in 1980. The employees will listen to your words. Employees listen to your words, but they watch your feet. So you can say whatever you want, but you're gonna actually demonstrate what you truly believe. And if we see leaders constantly promoting awareness of security, it makes all the difference in the world every chance they get. So on a slightly different topic, maybe a bit more technical. How has your incident response improved since before you started this journey and now that you're into it a little bit further? What has it been tested more? Are you happy with it? What's been going on with the sort of the recovery plans?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you asked that, Jim. Sometimes seeing the benefits is helpful, just saying having the certification as well. But I would say that for us, we really developed formal playbooks. So right, so recoveries of system 2 times as faster. When there's a disaster that goes down, we don't need the most technical manager involved in some of these situations. We really can rely on I would say like more formal or different types of managers who don't do this on a daily basis. Say this is the playbook, this is the escalation path, this is what we need to do, and really resolve those issues by themselves. So it really comes down to both a succession planning as well as a business continuity plan. There's a number of avenues and paths that we can take, but at the end of the day, it really streamlines the improvement of any incident. And I won't even just say cyber incident. Sometimes you have an IT system that goes down. You can often we use very similar playbooks, right? It's not always because there's a ransomware attack, because there's a phishing breach, for example. But I would say that it's really just what do you do in a scenario you have system outages. I think as part of cybersecurity and as part of IT specialists, a big portion of our job is not just worrying about cyber risk, but making sure the organization continues to operate. In being in healthcare, I always joke we're 24/7, so you don't get a chance for downtime. And I think that's as we develop new systems and new processes, that just becomes more and more true. Our users are expecting a higher response time, a higher uptime on our systems, and we just really can't afford days or even hours of downtime in a ever-evolving world. And really that we need to maximize, and by building these playbooks and IRPs or like the incident response plans, it really help improve those times to like recovery as well, those RTO and RPO times as well.
Excellent, thanks. Have you discovered a way, like I mentioned a fire drill a bit earlier, have you found a way to actually test your response time or just simulate? Obviously, you don't want to take the system down, but have you found ways, and maybe Mark can give us some ideas from other companies he's seen. We'll start with you though, Aaron. Have you developed a technique that you like to give it a prod once in a while?
Yeah, definitely. It really comes down to our tabletop exercises. I think as an organization, sometimes not everybody realizes the benefits of tabletop exercises. I think just kind of talking about that, it's more of a simulated approach of what would you do in this scenario. But the key thing for the tabletop is really the awareness. I think when we approach a tabletop, the approach is not everything needs to be perfect. We need to have all of the documentation ready and everybody needs to be ready and aware of everything. It's more about the learning and the awareness that the tabletop exercises bring. Sometimes senior leadership members, or I would say even any managements, aren't fully aware of something that can happen during an outage. And just having these tabletops really raises awareness. Oh, it's something I never really considered. Maybe it should be something I've considered. And I would say that in the past, we've really done guided tabletops. And I would say even at Lakeridge Health, this year, we're really looking into getting more of a interactive. And when I say interactive, I really mean getting the front end user. Obviously, we can't get all 7,000
Yes.
employees to participate in a tabletop, but really getting a subsample of those groups, having them really from the frontline decisions to middle tier decision, and moving over to like senior leadership and what would board do in some of these tabletop exercises. And from there, we will share the lessons learned, find some identified gaps, and really work to improve it. Like I really circle back to, do we need to have all the answers today? No, but we need to have a plan to continuously improve and just be prepared for as many situations as we can.
And you'll never, as we said before, never be fully prepared for everything that's coming, but at least if you've got some people talking about it, there could be some ideas that come up out of a mixed group or a cross-sectional group team that would kind of give you a hint of what's possible.
Yeah,
Mark?
100%, Jim. And I just saw in chat about examples of simulations, and I think
Oh,
that's a great question as well. And I think last year we really focused around a ransomware. What happens if our clinical information system gets hit with a ransomware? How do we approach? I think for those who aren't familiar, the clinical information system is the main system that houses your patient information. So in the event that gets hit, we do not have access to like your patient history. We don't have access to, I would say, key systems to um, administer care. And what is the approach to that? When do we go to downtime procedures? What is like how we tested all the downtime procedures and making sure all those systems are in play. The other thing I really want to tease is not just cybersecurity, like ransomware, malware, because at the end of the day, those are quite fun. But maybe I'll give an example to some of you. But I don't know if this impacted everyone, but I think Bell Canada went down for a few hours yesterday. So
Yesterday, yeah.
like right so it did impact you guys, right? So the question really becomes, it's not just a cyber incident, but like what is our business continuity plan? This really ties into ISO, even though ISO has the, especially the 27001 has the cybersecurity component. It's how do we continue to keep our business operational? And I think this is one of the areas that we've developed some plans, but there are also lessons learned for situations like that. Like some of our VPs we couldn't get a hold of, right? So really a recommendation is, do we look to provide secondary SIMs, one in Bell, one in Rogers? Do we need to define better succession planning? So I like to always joke, some of these plans don't necessarily have to come from cybersecurity related incidents, but just things that you experience day to day and totally out of your control. I don't think any of us could expected Bell Canada going down for 2 hours and half your remote workers can't remote, right? So just these developing topics. But maybe Mark, I'll pass it over to you. I don't know if you've seen any other simulations or anything else in your time as well.
Oh wow! Well, I think in all honesty, you guys already mentioned most of the amazing things, and I think I just mean her reference to simulation. I was just going to add because I think we spoke about it during the audit, and if you can remember, we explained we did all the tabletops, we're planning for tabletops, and I think we spoke about simulation and if that was possible. But I think that one of the highlights that came forward is that it's pretty hard to do a simulation in an organization that needs to be running 24/7.
Yes.
So for now, you probably focus on the tabletops. I have one example of what I really like to talk about with clients when we talk about, let's say, business continuity. That clients might just focus on the technical issues. They pull cables and they kind of script their monitoring tools, not to pick them up too soon. But I remember one client, they actually reached out to a college for media and all sorts, and they actually brought in like a camera crew. So they had a camera crew standing in front of the CEO, who was the media person, the person who would talk to the media, and then ask him questions, and then of course recorded afterwards for fun and giggles. But talking to media is one of the aspects that companies often, don't really talk about, expect everything will be fine, but once there's a camera in front of you, suddenly the world around you changes and kind of comes to a halt. So even media training as a lesson learned from that is a very important item. But yeah, simulations, if you can, Aaron, I'm sure we'll talk about it more during the audit in August. But tabletops for now is probably what you guys are going to continue with.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks. And that's you mentioned already the importance of organizational structure and making sure that the right person is in front of the camera. Because sometimes the wrong person can make a bad situation horrible. They make it really worse. And when you mentioned Bell a few days ago, Aaron, I remember a couple of years ago, Rogers went down here, wreaked a lot of havoc. They were working on their .NET part of the system, I think, and I'm not sure if they didn't take it offline properly or whatever, but anything can go wrong anytime, and the recovery is definitely, and I think that's when they discovered Bell was using some of the Rogers channels. It was a very interesting situation. So when we think about, you mentioned your world of regulatory bodies and all the laws you have to meet, Ontario Health and so on, would you say that anything has changed because of ISO certification relevant to patient trust as far as all those legal requirements go?
Yeah. I would say just generally speaking, the healthcare industry, I would say that when it comes to cybersecurity regulations, there are a few, but there are very few many, right? So I think when we think about privacy, there's the PHIPAA, there's FIPA as well. So there's a number of privacy protections around your personal information, but it doesn't really none of them really focuses or provide a standardized approach to cybersecurity. I know initially in this at the start of this webinar, I spoke about how cybersecurity has really evolved over the past 3 to 4 years, and really the Ontario Health has come up with the LDG approach, and I think that's a good step in the right direction. And I would say that just having ISO and just something to baseline against other organizations is really helpful. I think for organizations starting out, sometimes there's a number of items. Like, what do you focus on? Do you focus on installing antivirus onto your computers? Do you focus on cybersecurity awareness training? Do you focus on email security? Having some framework in place really helps focus and direct. And I think with an organization of the size of 7,000, it's quite important. And I think it's amazing that BSI did an amazing audit as well, and really help support us. And I would say let us know what areas that we may be lacking to improve, right? So back to it's a whole continuous improvement. But I will say that by having the ISO audit, it goes back to showing our community that this is what we're doing. It's also vetted by external auditors. It's not just I'm saying this is what we're doing, but an outside party came in, they've assessed and they've verified. So it's a little bit of both. This is what we're doing. Another company's provided it, and here's the external validation. So I think for us, the external validation is key because I can say I'm doing a lot of things, and that may or may not be true. But having somebody, especially a certifying body like BSI, saying yes, what they're saying is what they're doing is also very reassuring. And I'm sure if you're a patient of the Durham region, you will probably feel the same as well.
That's pretty exciting. Thanks. I'm sure Mark sees people in your position building the system, maintaining the system, improving the system, probably the most important part. And maybe from your perspective, Mark, can you see a link between ISO certification and patient confidence?
Most definitely, Jim. I think it's just another level of trust that you add to the organization. Obviously, there's no way for Lakeridge Health not to adhere to the law, and they have laws in place, and PIPEDA and the medical field. So they cannot say we're not going to do it. So having the ISO certificate is just a bit of a cherry on top, where you say like, okay, obviously we're adhering to the laws and regulation, and we're doing it for the right reasons. We have privacy policies in place, but we actually go one step further, where we can, show to anyone who wants to know that we have gone through the audits. We've built our management systems. All the processes are in place, and we went to the fun times with an auditor to talk about what we do and what we do well, and if there's room for improvement, as Aaron nicely put, we'll learn from that and improve. So it's more of an additional level that if clients or if the outside world is interested, Lakeridge Health can now say and now show that we went above and beyond, as Aaron nicely put it earlier. So yeah, I think it helps. It helps to add that extra level of trust on top, for sure.
Absolutely, thanks. And you still have that structure, no matter who the auditor is. If you're there, or if maybe you want to win the lottery and retire to the Bahamas or wherever, it's great to know that no matter who the players are, the system is still there.
Absolutely.
And patients get that sense of trust that no matter what changes take place, it'll still be there. So we've talked a lot today about the changes and the continuing pressure, and how everybody out there who's attacking you is continually sharpening their swords. So with all this sort of coming at you, Aaron, and the audience can see how enthusiastic you are about this whole world, how do you keep your enthusiasm up? How do you stay sharp?
Yeah, definitely reading, do a lot of reading, right? So it's not just about knowing everything, I think, and being in technology, something that you learned, I would even say a year ago, it won't be the same 1 year later. So it's really always about keeping up to date about what is out there and what potential is out there as well. I think to be successful, I would just say like in any business or in any information security role as well, you need to really understand from a business perspective of the approach. I think oftentimes in information technology, information security as well, the answer is a lot of people think that the answer will be no because it's not cyber secure, it's not safe. But really, we need to reframe the purpose and reframe the mindset of what an information technology and information security department is. And I would say it's the enabler of what your organization supports. So I think for us, we support healthcare. To me, and I think I would say that this is my personal sentiment, that we need to work towards things that improve patient healthcare and patient outcomes. It's very important for cybersecurity and information technology, but at the end of the day, my primary job is to also serve the patient population. I may not be out there doing CPR to an individual. I may not be assessing them, but I need to make sure there's a good balance between too cybersecure. And I don't want to say too cybersecure may not be the right term, but being over vectorized and saying no, we cannot do this, but really working with the end user to say what is the business requirement? How can information technology and cybersecurity approach this issue? And I would say like what kind of work together with the business. So I would say that even with all the technical certs out there, it's kind of very important at the end of the day to also have kind of that business mindset to really say like this is what our business is, and at the end of the day, it really needs to be an enabler of the business rather than a hindrance, of course.
Of
What do you
course.
feel about AI, Aaron? There's a question in the chat about AI and how that will probably go
Yeah.
into the healthcare system. Is that something you guys already utilize, or is it about to be utilized?
Yeah,
What's your
so
look at that?
So I can actually share Lakeridge Health. AI is a hot topic at Lakeridge Health. I think in all industries, and maybe I shouldn't even just generalize it of healthcare, but in all industries, AI is a big topic. And I love the approach our organization is taking towards AI. It's not just implement. It's really, we need to sit down, generate proper policies, make sure there's proper governance and regulations that we're comfortable with before implementing AI in any healthcare organization. So maybe just sharing, we recently developed a new AI team at Lakeridge Health. So that team is really focused on starting from scratch, starting with the basics. Information like ISO 27001 and 27701 doesn't really like specifically cover AI. I think Mark, there's a brand new standard for the operations of AI, but I would generalize it to say that many of the standards and many of the annexes of the ISO security does still apply to to AI in general. And for us, we've really taken the approach of, is this what our patient would want?
Hmm.
Like at the end of the day, we were very transparent in terms of how we use AI, and honestly, like AI is a very hot term these days. So I think I was always joking with my colleagues, but if you stick an AI sticker on it and say it's AI, it's probably double the price at that point. So I think really understanding the technology and how it's applied to whatever the use case is. Is it a technology use case? Does it improve patient outcomes? That's kind of key. And we as an organization want to make sure that we have the proper foundation in place before we deep dive into any AI initiatives, and also getting patient understanding, getting feedback from the community to say, is this what you really want? Because just circling back to my initial comment, it's really about serving the community. If the community doesn't think this AI tool is really helpful, then there's really no point for us to really pursue that. But we're really looking at improving those patient outcomes and patient times as well.
Okay. So at this point, I don't think the standards really cover AI, both privacy and information security. Obviously, you can still approach it with risk management. Is that something you've done already? Like identify risk areas or privacy
With
concerns when it comes to AI?
Yes, for sure. And I would say that, Mark, we have a robust system. We have an REB process. Whenever even the term AI appears, we kind of all get into a committee. We have a number of digital health committees that talk about kind of the use of AI, and we're really funneling and trying to pursue all AI channels and streams
Mhm.
into kind of this one committee. I think with the launch of Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, I know many organizations may be using
Sure.
Copilot. We as an organization didn't really decide to roll out Copilot broadly. We have a very specific use case. We have a few licenses and a very specific use case, and making sure we have targeted measures to show and to prove, does AI actually improve the productivity of staff? So I don't want to get too much into it. It's not really my domain, but I do know some about it talking to my colleague, but really measuring how much time does it take you to do the task without AI, and how much does it take to do the task with AI. So I think this is one of the examples to say AI is a fancy term. People sometimes over exaggerate how much time AI saves, but for us, it's really about, is there a result?
Mhm.
Is there a measurable result in deploying AI? And I think that's the approach we're taking alongside making sure the foundations are in place as well.
Well, that team you mentioned, Aaron, make sure they get a copy of ISO 42001, the AI management system standard, and there are lots and lots of articles out there on it as well.
For sure.
Podcasts, everything you can imagine. Thanks, and I'll just check with Jess. Are there any questions? We've got a couple more things to cover before we're done, but is there anyone waiting in the chat room with anything?
I think we're good at this point, Jim.
Okay, good. Thanks very much. So when you look back at the entire process, and this is sometimes a bristling question, but you're clearly up to the task. Just wondering if there was anything, now that you've been through it, now that you know it, was there anything that you would warn people against? Did you have any things that you thought, Mike, what were we thinking when we did that? Anything that you'd suggest that you could have maybe done better?
Yeah, and I would go back to this. I think throughout the journey, I think us and the organization really enjoyed it. We improved a lot of processes. We made sure some things in place, and we really like the approach that some of these standards and like the opinions that the standard provide. I think just near the end of it, we were a little ambitious in getting our certification. And Mark, if
Yes.
you remind me again, I think it was what, 24 or 29 audit days.
24, I would say. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we decided to cram about 24 audit days into about 10 days. So it was a very chaotic time. I think at one point we had three or four auditors at the same time. There's a lot of project management, so really wanted to maybe just give a shout out to Shirley Brink, one of our project managers, to really associate that, and maybe the leadership team as well, Christine Scrolling-Humphrey, Alon Langa, as well as Michael Cole. Really
Mhm.
just understanding that it was a very tight time, and there's a number of there was a number of activities and audits at the same time. So honestly, if I had to go back, I probably wouldn't be doing 24 audit days in about 10 days, and maybe just keep it one day, one day is equal to one audit day. But that would be my only, I wouldn't even say regret. I think at the end of the day, the outcome, we got certified in our time frame, which is great. But I would say that maybe if I were to do it again, I will give myself a little bit more breathing room.
Yeah, for sure. Hey,
Sounds
Jim,
like,
I think there's one more poll that
oh, yes.
Jess has made available to us.
And are we ready to go with that? Let me just see. I'm trying to remember where it
And I
can.
also need to give you the 5-minute warning.
Oh, there's the poll. Thank you very much. Would you consider implementing 27001 and or 27701 to help you manage today's cyber security landscape? And just a reminder, BSI's, I don't know if I have a slide later on, you can imagine BSI has lots of resources to help you. And there's lots of information out there. As I mentioned earlier, 27001 has a companion document, 27002. Did 27701 have any guidance documents with it, Aaron?
Yes, it did. So I think both of them had guidance documents associated with at the top of my head. So yeah, we really used those guides. We used additional help externally, and we really worked with during the audit, worked with BSI to make sure we're compliant with the standard as well.
Excellent. The 27001 series is pretty extensive too. It's got its own risk version of ISO 31000, 27005.
Mhm.
It's got some guidance for you, 27007 for internal audits to go with sort of an extension of 19011. And the definitions, of course, they're quite helpful as well. So there's lots of information out there, not to mention the information in AI. You could sort of ask a question like, we're a smelting plant in Ontario, Canada. We have to meet the health and safety laws of so and so and such, and Well, what should we have in our context for ISO 27001 for clause 4? And you can get some very interesting information out of there. I'd certainly recommend using 2 or 3 different versions of artificial intelligence to make sure you don't get something that's developing a bias or something, but there's lots to be said for it. So that's it for me. Is there anything else you'd like to finish up with? Mark, did you want to say anything on behalf of BSI?
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone here, and most importantly, Aaron, for willing to come forward and talk about his journey with not just ourselves, but also his own journey for implementation and getting certified. I just want to add one thing. We spoke about AI earlier. For those who are not aware, I'm sure that's still an option, right? There is a new standard for AI that came out not so long ago. It's the ISO 42001. It's actually a great standard. So anyone who wants to explore the opportunity to look at AI standards, there is one made available now. But yeah, all that. I think everything is said. Aaron did an amazing job. I mean, we went through the audit last year, and himself and his team did a tremendous. It was a great accomplishment. So hopefully we'll continue that streak in the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you for having me, Jim and Mark as well.
Yes, thanks for joining us and sharing your journey with us. It's a remarkable journey to say the least, and we got to give hats off to you for taking the reins and getting them all the way from the beginning. And I'm glad you mentioned, and it's often forgotten, that the certificate's not the reason not the reason you're doing this. It's a nice bonus for sure, and it does demonstrate to the world that you've met all these rigorous requirements and will continue to through surveillance audits, of course, but just taking advantage of the wisdom that went into writing this standard for one thing, and then the help from people like Mark and his team, making sure that you're finding ways to continually improve. Thanks everybody,
Thank you so
and
much.
we will see you at the next webinar.
Thanks, Jim.